A Nintendo Direct in August. Does this even make sense? Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games. Today I want to talk a little bit about this rumor that Nintendo will have more presentations in the coming weeks, specifically the idea that there might even be an August Nintendo Direct coming very soon in the next couple of weeks, but also with that, kind of speculate and talk a little bit more about when we think the Switch 2 reveal will actually fit into this. So this all started a couple days ago over on Family Boards when the user Brazil, they have like a speculation thread over there where they just kind of speculate what will be in the next Direct, when the next Direct will be. He dropped by on Friday saying, "Oh, I'm glad you guys already have a thread up for this. You might need it sooner rather than later," kind of hinting that there would be some sort of a Nintendo Direct presentation coming in the near future. Now, if you aren't familiar with Brazil, he is, I would say, 50-50 on whether or not his sources are correct or right, which is why I will say right now, take everything I'm about to cover with a big grain of salt, because he has been wrong and he's also technically been right. So back in February, Brazil on his podcast was the first person to really report that he had heard from his sources that the Switch 2 was being delayed to 2025. And then of course, Video Games Chronicle and a ton of other outlets immediately corroborated it with their own sources saying, yes, we've heard the Switch 2 is releasing in 2025. But Brazil was the origin of that. Now, the reason I'm saying take this with a grain of salt, Brazil had said that he heard from his sources that there was going to be an April Nintendo Direct. I actually covered that back in March, I believe, when he said that, and that obviously did not happen. So take all of this with a grain of salt, but I wanted to talk about it, and it kind of gives me an excuse to talk about the Switch 2 timing and this potential September Direct, or I guess in this case, an August Direct. So we kind of teased it in the speculation thread over on Family Boards, but then in their podcast, which is in Portuguese, a user on Family Boards, Guarana, kind of translated it and gave us a little rundown here. He says here, "According to our very own Brazil, the journalist who broke the news about the 2025 Switch 2 release, Nintendo seems to have brought forward some plans regarding the Switch 2's release schedule. Some presentations, he doesn't specify which ones, that were scheduled for the end of September seem to have been brought forward to the next couple of weeks." He also said in that episode of the podcast that it should be one of the last ones they release before news about the Switch 2 really starts to pop up. He then added, though this just seems to be his personal opinion, that the Switch 2's release schedule will follow more or less the same routes as what we saw with the Switch, basically saying it will likely be announced in September, October, and released in March. So because of all of this, a lot of people are starting to speculate whether or not there will actually be a Nintendo Direct in August. Now, following the June Direct, I got a lot of comments and kind of a lot of flack for saying that I thought there would be a September Direct. Based on what they showed in that June Direct, I was like, there's no way Nintendo does not have another Nintendo Direct for the Switch 1 before they move on to Switch 2 and announce the Switch 2 and its games lineup and all that stuff, right? I was very headstrong on there being a September Direct. Now, from what it sounds like here, Brazil has heard from his sources that they will be moving forward some of those plans, and one of those things could be a potential Nintendo Direct. He didn't specify Nintendo Direct, he just said presentation. He did specify on Family Boards that he's hearing that there will be an Indie World in September, which is interesting, I guess, because I believe traditionally Indie Worlds usually happen around the time of Gamescom, which is at the end of August. So basically the rundown, as far as I can tell, would be this, right? In August, Nintendo Direct, or maybe that's a partner showcase, maybe that's a Direct Mini, but in August, Nintendo Direct, a September Indie World, and then maybe later in September or October, we would see the Switch 2 announcement presentation, whether it's a 3-minute trailer or a big event, whatever that would be in late September or October, which is definitely an exciting thought. I don't want to get my hopes up too much for this being real, because an August Direct very rarely happens. The last time we had an August Nintendo Direct, I want to say, not counting like the Mario Wonder Direct, the game-specific Directs, the last time we had a more general one was in 2014, I believe, I want to say. Yeah, at the end of August, there was a Japan-specific Nintendo 3DS Direct, and that Direct, funnily enough, actually announced new hardware. They announced the new 3DS in that showcase, as well as Shulk coming to Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U. So that was the last time we had a more general Direct, but even then it was still focused on 3DS, though with the announcement of the new 3DS there, that was a pretty big deal. But that was the last time we had a regular Direct, I would say, in August. Usually we get it in September, so the idea that they would move it up from September to August is a little weird, but if we're expecting the Switch 2 to be announced very soon, so, hopefully in September, that could make sense. It could make sense to move it up to August. I'm just skeptical of it because we just got the Direct in June. If we're talking a mid to late August Direct, that feels almost too soon, even though I do believe in another Direct happening within the next, let's say, 6 weeks or so. having it be this month versus like mid-September or even like kind of earlier September like we're used to, having it be this month just feels a little too soon almost. But we did just get that trailer for Echoes of Wisdom. We got that new trailer for that, so they have that pretty covered. So it's not going to be like an Echoes of Wisdom focused direct, I don't think. We have never gotten a Zelda direct at all, actually, I don't believe. We've gotten some presentations from Aonuma, but we've never had a Zelda branded Nintendo Direct, because I saw some people speculating like maybe they'll do that this year, because last year they had Mario Wonder get a direct right during the PAX weekend, because then they had Mario Wonder playable for people at PAX. I got to play it last year. But since we just got that overview trailer for Echoes of Wisdom, they're kind of good on that. I don't think they need to do a big presentation for Echoes of Wisdom. They could do something more specific for Mario Party or Mario and Luigi, I would say is more likely. But even then, I don't think either of those games need their own dedicated showcase. So some sort of Nintendo Direct is definitely coming soon. I guess the question would be, will that be a partner showcase? Will that be a Direct Mini? Or will that be a full-fledged Nintendo Direct? I mean, the last time we had a Direct Mini that wasn't a partner showcase, I want to say was in, man, was that in 2020? Like right during COVID when that first happened? I believe it was in 2020. That's where they announced Clubhouse Games and stuff. So it's been a long time since we've had a Direct Mini. I don't know if a partner showcase makes sense when they'll want to give a quick shout to Echoes of Wisdom, and of course, more importantly, Mario and Luigi Brothership, as well as Mario Party, which are a little bit further out and we haven't seen again since the announcement. Echoes of Wisdom's kind of covered, so they need to show Brothership and Mario Party again. And then beyond that, I still think there's more to the 2025 lineup that we don't know about, be that, you know, Fire Emblem 4 Remake we've been talking about a lot, Prime 2 and 3, I just made a video on talking about why I'm not fully even sold on those happening, but those are something people are expecting, so maybe we could see those. There's still plenty of games they could have in their lineup for 2025 that would make sense to announce in a September showcase. Now, I did see some people talking about Donkey Kong Country Returns and how that game being announced kind of makes it feel like, well, if there's going to be a Nintendo Direct, why didn't they just wait until September to announce Country Returns HD? Because traditionally, the early January game does get announced in September, and that is true. I think for every year except for maybe when Legends Arceus was announced a little early, that has been true. Last year was Another Code. Year before that was Fire Emblem Engage. Tokyo Mirage Sessions was announced in the September Direct. New Super Mario Bros. U was announced in that same slot. So it is a little peculiar that Donkey Kong Country Returns was announced in June and releasing in January, whereas usually the game in that slot gets announced in September. But my counter argument to that would be, I think Nintendo really just wanted to solidify that they will be supporting the Switch into 2025. Yes, we already had Prime 4. Yes, they had Legend ZA. But I think they wanted to show like, hey, first of all, Donkey Kong, which people have been begging for, but also just like, hey, there's going to be some more casual stuff coming out too, because with Prime 4 and Legends ZA, less or so, the speculation that those are Switch 2 games has been running really rampant. So I think maybe Nintendo just wanted to be like, hey, here's a regular Switch 1 game. There's no weird speculation of like whether or not this is going to be enhanced on Switch 2 or whatever. This is just a Switch 1 game. Do not worry about it. I think that's why they announced that. It's kind of similar to what they did back in 2018, I want to say, where they announced Bowser's Inside Story for 3DS in the March Direct and didn't release it until January 2019. I think they were just kind of showing support into the you know, farther future than they typically do with that release. So I don't necessarily think Country Returns kind of hurts the chances of a September Direct, but I wanted to mention it because it is kind of an interesting thing that normally that January game is announced in September. Now, I did talk about in a video a couple weeks ago that I was kind of getting, not cold feet necessarily, but I made a video talking about the idea that maybe the Switch 2 won't even be announced until January. Not necessarily saying it's going to come out late 2025. I was still kind of saying like, you know, March, April, maybe May at the latest, but they could announce it in January, release it in May, and that would be a pretty similar time frame. Maybe they would wait until then. I don't necessarily believe that, but I wanted to throw out the idea and kind of just maybe brace people for that being a possibility. But I still do lean towards the idea that they'll follow a similar release and announcement pattern to what they did with the Switch, because the Switch was so successful. Why do you want to, you know, change what obviously worked so freaking well? And the funny thing is, we actually did have a September Direct in 2016 before the announcements of the Switch. We had a Nintendo 3DS focused Direct, but at that point there were no Wii U games, so that might as well have been a general Nintendo Direct. And then just a month later in October, we had the reveal of the Switch. So we could be seeing a very similar thing here, where in late August, we'll say, we get a general Direct or a partner showcase or something, though I would lean towards general. We get a general Direct in late August. We get a Indie World in September sometime, I presume before TGS, and then maybe in October or even late September, we do see the Switch actually get its reveal trailer, the Switch 2, I should say. But as I have talked about in the past, a mid-September announcement for the Switch 2 would also make a lot of sense so that their developers can show games at TGS. Specifically, I think Capcom with Monster Hunter, what is it called? Wilds. I think that's a no-brainer game for Switch 2, and showing it at TGS running on Switch 2 would just be a slam dunk for Nintendo and Capcom, so I could see them trying to get the announcement out before then. The difference with the Switch, and why I imagine Nintendo wasn't too worried about getting it out before TGS before, was that there wasn't as many developers immediately jumping on board. They put out that big image, and yeah, CD Projekt Red and Capcom and Bethesda were on there, sure, but the reality is we didn't really see developers like Capcom and Square Enix and Sega really going all in on the Switch until years later, until 2018, 2019. But with the Switch 2, now that we know the Switch 1 was a massive success, I feel like Nintendo's going to want to leverage those third parties and kind of use them a little bit more this time when marketing this new console and announcing this new console. So an announcement right before Tokyo Game Show could definitely make sense, but that feels like it almost doesn't feel real to even like talk about, oh, the Switch 2 is getting announced in like 5 weeks. That feels way too soon. But I guess it's just because I've been talking about it for so freaking long at this point. But it is an exciting time to be a Nintendo fan. We shouldn't have to wait too long for some sort of exciting new information. It's not like I'm really like dying for information about Nintendo games right now, because we have Echoes of Wisdom, we have Famicom Detective Club coming out at the end of August, which I'm really excited for. I just played through the first game in that series, so definitely getting ready for that. And then later in the holiday, we have Mario Party and Mario and Luigi. So I wouldn't say I'm necessarily like thirsty for news, but I'm kind of always thirsty. I'm always wanting more Nintendo news. I'm a glutton for announcements, so let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think of this whole rumor that the September Direct might have been moved up to September? What do you think of the possibility of the Switch 2 reveal event or the reveal trailer happening in September or October? Where are all of you guys at when it comes to what you think Nintendo will do with their marketing for the rest of the Switch 1 games, as well as for the Switch 2 reveal? I would love to get a conversation going down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, all of that fun stuff. Check out my new channel at It's Amiibo. Been getting a lot of awesome growth over there. Very happy with how that's doing, so thank you all so much for the support there. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Until next time, folks, peace.